Hi, my name is Debra R. Richardson of Debra R. Richardson LLC, and I work with you to help you clean up your vendor data, clean up your vendor processes, and pay the right vendor. And this week's vendor master file tip of the week is really part two of last week's, and it's really surrounding, right, the vendor team you don't work for. And this was one of my biggest pet peeves. I'm sure that it's still happening today where certain groups, and probably no one, right, understands why the vendor team asks for what they ask for to either set up a vendor or change an existing vendor. So often you may get questions or questioned about why you ask for certain things or just be told that you don't need them at all. And so let's take a look at this second group. And of course, it is the vendors. And let me see if I can get this going correctly. All right. So the vendors are a big one where, right, where they try to tell you what they don't need because they're just trying to hurry up and check a box, right, with sending you what they think you need in order to set them up in the system or to change their information. And so they just want to get past you so that they can go on to fulfilling, the contract or service or send the products. And so, from your perspective, though, you need to make sure that the vendor setup and maintenance process avoids fraud, avoids any potential compliance fines, and just overall bad vendor data. And so that means that no matter what the vendor says or asks, you need to be strict to set the vendor up or to change the existing vendor because you need to protect your company. And that means protecting them against tax reporting to make sure that that is accurate if it's required. Also to make sure that the vendor is real. And then also you need to make sure you're not paying vendors that are on watch lists. So you need to make sure you're performing all of the required vendor validations, even if your vendors don't understand why. And to perform those validations, you need to make sure that you're collecting the right information again, even if the vendors do not understand why. So instead, what you need to do is no matter what, require that the vendor submit the documents that you have identified are necessary in order to set up the vendor. You also need to make sure that you need to or that you are completing any vendor validations that are required for your company, your industry, your vendor countries. So you need to make sure that you have all the validations that are required for your company in place and that you are performing them each time. And by the way, if those validations fail, keep reaching out until you get accurate information and valid and successful validations, no matter what the vendor indicates. And so that you need to make sure that you do so that you protect your company. Now, one thing I will say may help you with that is to have vendor scripts and templates. And so when you have a new vendor that needs to be added, have vendor add instructions, have a template that can just be copied and pasted into an email, include the applicable forms so that you ask for what you need and you're not just getting what they send you. And that is the same for vendor add instructions as well. And then once you uh, add the vendor, you can also send them a notification of add to let them know they've been set up, and then also include in there what is required if they would like to have a change in the future, where they need to send that request to, or any other information that the vendor needs to do business with your company. Some people may call this a vendor welcome letter. And I didn't put an arrow next to it, but right above the vendor notification of add, you can also have the vendor notification of change too. So if you make a change to their record, send an email out or even a snail mail, right? If they don't have an email address what's on file. And then that way, if for some reason they did not initiate that change and fraud went through, they have the opportunity at that point to contact you. And that's the same way that if you make any change with any of your online accounts, you'll get a notification as well. Now, if you are curious about what the first group was, if you did not watch that Vendor Master File Tip of the Week last week, then that will come up right after this. So stay tuned. All right, so if you'd like more information on how to improve your vendor process, please go to my website at deborarrichardson.com for free tools and resources to avoid fraud, fines, and just overall bad vendor data. And if you would like over 149 annual hours of training on the vendor process for you and your vendor team, check out the Vendor Process Training Center at training.deborarrichardson.com. So good luck and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified next Tuesday for the next Vendor Master File Tip of the Week.